Good afternoon. It's Friday. Definitely seeing those hazy skies across downtown Houston, all thanks to that smog and that haze and that smoke that's coming in from south of us. Of course, that's coming in from those agricultural fires down in Mexico. Here's a live look right now. Bush Airport 88, Brenham 87, Tomball at 87 degrees, Pearland at 86 degrees, Conroe at 89. It's going to be interesting to see if we're going to break another high temperature record today. We're forecasting a high of 95 degrees. The record was set back in 2022 when we got up to 94. So our record is at risk for a fourth day in a row. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not we tie it or we break it. And of course, this is abnormally hot for this time of year, especially for Houston standards. But we are expecting that warm up to take place at least through this afternoon. It's going to ultimately last through the weekend, unfortunately. Just make sure to stay hydrated and practice those heat safety measures if you plan to spend some time outdoors. Here's a look at the feels like temps. Of course, those feels like temp is factoring the humidity and the actual temp. It's definitely a measurement of how fast our body responds to the humid conditions. So when it's really humid outside, our sweat doesn't really evaporate. That's why when we are in drier conditions, our sweat evaporates and we actually feel relief from it. But for us here across Houston, it's definitely humid. It prevents that sweat from evaporating, and it just feels all the more hotter. There's actual science behind that. Feels like temps right now at 101 at Tilson Lane, 99 at Central Park Terrace, out towards the Medical Center. Feeling as already 102 at Bolsover Street. Feeling like 104 out at Sunset Boulevard. So I know you're seeing the differences in those temperatures. I know sometimes you have the buildings and more the reflection of the sun in certain locations. That really could play a role at making it a little bit hotter than the surrounding areas, especially when there is buildings. There's also the urban heat island effect that could cause some warmer conditions here in the Houston area. So for this evening, our sun is expected to set around 8:04 p.m. So you have until then to take advantage of some cooler temperatures. Our sun is setting later in the day as we head closer to the summer months. Getting down to 83 by 9 p.m., 11 p.m., 81 degrees, just muggy and humid for us as we head into the overnight hours. So if you're heading out and about, we're just expecting to be muggy and humid for the overnight hours. So weekend forecast, hot and hazy, the case for Saturday, a high of 95, 94 for Sunday. If you have those weekend plans, it is going to be fairly hot. Just keep in mind that practice those heat safety measures. Our bodies have not really acclimated to these hot conditions yet. Usually it takes until August and end of July for us to get used to this heat. So you could suffer from those heat related illnesses a little bit faster because we've been dealing with these cooler temperatures for much of the year. So now just make sure to stay hydrated, practice the heat safety measures, take frequent breaks, maybe get in the shade away from the sunlight because that all just makes it all the more hotter. Also wear light colored clothing. It makes a huge difference if you wear lighter colored clothing rather than dark and black colored clothing, because that really does attract more of the sunlight, will ultimately makes you hotter. So practice those heat safety measures, stay safe out there as we head into the weekend. No rain chances expected. We do have some slight relief as we head into Tuesday. That's going to be in the form of a weak cold front. I'm saying cold front, but we're only going to go from the 90s to the upper 80s. Just maybe a 3 to 5 degree difference in terms of those temperatures. So it's a Houston version of a cold front. But looking at our smoke futurecast, we have agricultural fires burning in Mexico. It is agricultural burning season in Mexico and Central America. They're getting ready for the growing seasons that usually take place in June through October. So they're burning all of the excess vegetation that is not needed down south. And ultimately, when you have that high pressure system in place, it brings those winds from the south, ultimately bringing that hazy sky, smoggy conditions. It could cause some lower air quality levels across our area. So if you have any lung sensitivities, I know I suffer from that. I haven't felt any issues as of now or today or yesterday, but we're expecting that haze to last at least through Saturday, Sunday, and into Monday, as we're still going to be influenced by that dome of high pressure. You're able to see these wind speeds that are blowing across Texas. That's where the center of that high is right now. There is something called pressure gradient force. When you have the differences between a high pressure and a low pressure system, we have a low that's off towards the Pacific Northwest. When you have those two factors combined, it really creates those wind speeds that we're seeing, that we saw yesterday and that now we're seeing today. Our meteorologist Kim Castro did a perfect explainer about that and explaining why we're getting these breezy conditions for the last couple of days and how we're expected to be seeing that for the next 2 to 3 days. A very good scientific explainer. You can check that out on khou.com. So as we head into the weekend and into next week, that dome of high pressure is going to start retreating southward, further south down into maybe the Yucatan Peninsula, and that's going to open up the door for these disturbances to move through Texas. And we're expecting one. Weather models are hinting that we could see a weak front Tuesday and into Wednesday. I think this model's overdoing it in terms of the rain chance. I think most of the rain is going to remain well north of Houston, but we could see some isolated showers out of this going into Tuesday. And ultimately, it's going to bring some slightly cooler temperatures for the middle of next week. And I said cold front, and I know you see the cold front on the map here, but just keep in mind that a Houston version of a cold front, we're just going to go from the 90s into the upper 80s, maybe a high of 89 degrees for Wednesday, unlike the 96 and the 95s that we've been seeing for the past 3 to 4 days, and how we're expecting to see that through the weekend. But we're expecting those future temps to be slightly cooler for us by next Wednesday and Thursday, giving some slight relief. Overnight lows possibly dropping into the 60s for next week, and then we're going to be ramping up back into the 90s for next weekend. The Climate Prediction Center is indicating that we are expecting above normal temperatures through May 22nd through May 26th. They're including a large portion of the southern half of Texas, even West Texas, dealing with those above normal temperatures. I saw somewhere that they're also dealing with these abnormally hot conditions out in India and Asia. So there's something that happens where you see this weather pattern that's somehow reflected on the other side of the world in another location. So we're going to look into that, probably do an explainer on that later on today. But as far as our 10-day high temperature trends, highs in the 90s, we will see that slight cool down for Wednesday and into Thursday, but we're just expected to remain mostly hot and humid through Monday and into Tuesday. And we are definitely expecting those 7 days conditions to be just hot and muggy. It's not hurricane season yet, but the National Hurricane Center has started to release their daily updates. The good news, no activity expected for the next 7 days. Very quiet conditions off in the Atlantic Basin, but this is just an important reminder that hurricane season is just only 16 days away. So if you don't have those plans, if you're new to Houston and maybe possibly not really familiar with how hurricane season treats Southeast Texas, just have an action plan available, and you can get that information on khou.com as we head into hurricane season, because we have a history of flooding with some pretty bad storms here across our area. So 88 degrees right now if you're heading out to lunch. I'd say it's still a little bit warm to have that lunch outdoors. Sunset at 8:09. Sun is setting later in the day. But as you look at our 7-day forecast, expect those temps to remain mostly warm and muggy through the weekend. Lows in the 70s, might see those record-breaking temperatures through the start of next week, but we'll see that slight relief by Wednesday and Thursday, with the indication with that front is also going to bring some lower humidity by Wednesday. So even though we see a high of 89, it might feel more comfortable out there if you are doing those outdoor activities. So maybe just a little glimmer of spring left in the forecast as we head into the middle of next week. But as we head into looking at the situation for the next few days, we are expecting those conditions to remain mostly just a bit muggy and warm for us as we go into the next few days. We're still going to be influenced by that dome of high pressure. If you're just now joining us, we are definitely expecting a warm outlook through the next few days. High pressure system, dome of high pressure in place. That's going to start retreating southward, maybe as late as Monday and into Tuesday. And we will see that open up the door for maybe a cold front or two. Maybe just one cold front, not two cold fronts. I don't know why I just said that, but mostly isolated showers likely well north of Houston. And we will see those, that brings some slight relief in our temperatures with highs in the upper 80s, lows in the 60s, maybe by Wednesday, Thursday of next week. So you're going to have to bear with us in terms of the hot and humid conditions through this weekend, and practice those heat safety measures as we are expected to be above normal for the next few days. So high temperature trend, no relief in sight, at least until next Wednesday and into Thursday. So we are expecting those conditions to remain mostly just a bit hot and muggy and summer-like for the next 2 to 3 days. 16 days left until hurricane season. So if you are preparing for that, you want to just have an action plan in place. as we head into June 1st, which is the first day of hurricane season. Records at 95 for today and tomorrow, but highs in the 90s, lows in the 70s. No rain in the forecast, just some slight relief in sight by Wednesday and into Thursday. And of course, we're tracking the latest weather forecasts and the latest weather safety measures that you might need to take in terms of this heat, as well as preparing for hurricane season on khou.com. And you can get all of that information by downloading the KHOU 11 app. And you can also access KHOU 11 Plus, where you're able to see more of an extended version of our forecasts. And of course, more news and sports as we go into the next, as we get closer into the summer months. Have a great rest of your day. I'm meteorologist Chris Ramirez with your extended KHOU Plus